This is Employer Paid Leave, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and amendments to the New Jersey Earned Sick Leave Law. I'm presenting this video on April 19th, 2020. I mention that date because, as we'll discuss in this video, the situation is very fluid and there's changes to the laws, both state and federal, being made on a near daily basis. My name is Thomas Bigosinski. I'm a partner in the Labor and Employment Group for the law firm McElroy, Deutsch, Mulvaney and Carpenter in Morristown, New Jersey. My contact information is on the screen. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about the subject matter that we're discussing here. As I mentioned, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, it went into law on April 1st of 2020. Its effective date is through December 31st of 2020. This is part of the stimulus package that was passed along with the Paycheck Protection Program and the SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Your business might benefit from these stimulus packages. If you have any questions that I can't handle, certainly contact me. I can put you in touch with somebody here at the firm who can. The goal of all of these actions are to keep American employees at work. The Congress was anticipating astronomically high unemployment claims, and they didn't want state unemployment systems to be overwhelmed. The piece of this act that I'm really going to address is the paid leave component. There are a number of other features: free COVID-19 testing, protecting frontline health workers, supporting state unemployment programs. There's a wealth of information about this act that's out there. I can help you navigate through this if you think it would benefit your business. Keep in mind that although I'm discussing primarily the federal component, New Jersey and other states have in place paid sick leave laws that they're expanding. As recently as March 25th, of 2020, Governor Murphy here in New Jersey signed legislation that expands paid sick leave benefits and family leave provisions. I'm going to discuss that at the end of the video for those of you who think you benefit from that. And certainly the first question you're likely to ask is whether or not your business is covered by this act, whether or not it applies to you and your workers. Basically, this is for businesses with under 500 employees. If you have under 50 employees, an exemption may apply to you if the requirements of this act would jeopardize the viability of your business as a going concern. There are a number of questions such as how you calculate the number of employees you have, what you do about overtime hours, and how you count hours worked by part-time employees. A helpful resource is here on the screen. The Department of Labor website has a number of helpful, frequently asked questions that can address some of those sort of sub-issues, or you can contact us here at McElroy, Deutsch, Mulvaney and Carpenter. We can help you figure this stuff out as well. For many businesses that are perhaps deemed non-essential and are closed or are limited in what they can do at this moment, the first natural question is whether or not you should be laying off employees or whether or not you can lay off employees. And the answer to that is yes, you may be able to, but you may not want to now that there are incentives to keep your employees employed. Certainly if employees are laid off, they're likely eligible to apply for unemployment benefits. If you have covered employees that are not working or teleworking and they're seeking paid sick time leave, there are a number of those employees in your workforce that are likely covered by this act. You see the 6 criteria, any of which might apply, and more likely than not, the majority of your workforce is eligible for paid sick time leave under this act. Also, they're likely covered by the expanded family leave provision of this act. At the time that Congress generated this law, not all schools throughout the country were closed. More likely than not, schools are closed wherever you have employees. So if they don't have child care or they are caring for children in school, they're eligible for leave or paid sick time under this act. There's 3 components to the sick time piece of this. More likely than not, your employees will fall into one of 2 categories. They're entitled to 2 weeks of paid sick leave at their regular rate of pay if they're quarantined or subject to a quarantine order, or if they're experiencing COVID-19 symptoms. If they are not, but they're caring for somebody, a child who is in school or out of school or doesn't have child care, they're entitled to 2 weeks of pay at 2/3 of their regular rate of pay. And in addition to that, if they've worked for you for at least 30 days, they're entitled to an additional 10 weeks of paid expanded family and medical leave at 2/3 of their rate of pay. There are a number of caveats that are important to consider when looking at the acts and looking at what your employees are entitled to. Keep in mind, part-time employees are eligible for the number of hours of leave that they work on an average over a 2-week period. And this paid sick time provision under this act is not eligible to be carried over. Your employees are not entitled to reimbursement for unused leave if they resign or if they're terminated or retire, et cetera, during the time that the act covers them. There are caps that apply to the amount of benefits that your employees are entitled to, $511 per employee per day if the employee takes paid sick leave for reason of quarantine or self-quarantine or having coronavirus symptoms. That's an aggregate of $5,110 for the course of the 10 days or the 2-week period, and also $200 per day or $2,000 for the 2-week period if the employee takes sick leave care for a quarantined individual or somebody or a child who's out of school, or they don't have available child care. And also, you can, as the employer, require that your employees use their paid sick time or vacation entitlements prior to utilizing the leave that's afforded to them under the FFCRA. There's considerations that as an employer you might want to take, including union contracts and some state laws that might complicate that question. And certainly feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions like that. As I mentioned earlier in this video, the act took effect on April 1st of 2020. So if your employee took leave prior to that date related to coronavirus, either because they were showing symptoms or they were caring for a person who was sick, or if they were sick themselves, that doesn't count towards this calculation. Only leave beginning on April 1st, 2020 is calculated. To the employer's benefit, of course, you're very curious about the tax credits that are available to you, and covered employers will qualify for a dollar-for-dollar reimbursement through tax credits for these qualifying wages paid under the FFCRA. These tax credits also extend to amounts paid to maintain health insurance coverage. There's a wealth of information available out there, and this is a very sort of complex mosaic of factors that you're going to want to consider. A very useful website is the Department of Treasury's website, which is on the screen now, and certainly you can contact us. If I can't help you, I can certainly put you in touch with an attorney here who can. This slide may be useful to you to kind of get an idea of the paid sick leave for yourself, paid sick leave or for the employee, paid sick leave for somebody else, and the expanded sick leave piece of this act, and the timeframes and the payouts that employees are entitled to. I mentioned earlier that New Jersey has also amended its laws to sort of work with or help stimulate the economy and keep employees at work. If you have headquarters here in New Jersey, or if you have operations in New Jersey, this might benefit you to know. New Jersey had previously, prior to this pandemic, an earned sick leave law, and the provisions have been expanded to provide paid time off to employees who've been impacted by coronavirus. Those discussions are on the screens here. You can see the amendments to the New Jersey earned sick leave law, basically addressing the impact to families by this pandemic and schools being closed and being under the terms of a stay-at-home order entered by Governor Murphy back in March. And these are, we should point out, permanent changes. This is not something that lapses or ends at the end of the year. Your policies, your employment policies and workplace policies should be changed to reflect these changes should, God forbid, a situation like this ever arise again. So that's my brief primer on the Federal Families First Coronavirus Relief Act and some of the amendments to the New Jersey law that could impact your business. There's so much more to discuss about these topics. We'd be happy to help you kind of figure out the way to maintain your business and keep your employees and survive through this very difficult time. My contact information again is on the screen. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have questions. And again, if I can't help you, I'm certain to find somebody here who can. We look forward to speaking to you. Be safe. Thank you.